Over the last 50 years, women have gained momentum in the workforce. They are out in the communities, they are working, and they are bringing home a paycheck. But for some families, this paycheck is not enough to make a real difference. In New Bedford and Fall River, two post-industrial cities, women's economic independence is a frequently debated topic. According to recent data, 1/3 of New Bedford families are headed by a single family, and of those families, 38% live in poverty. Even while working full-time, poverty still persists for these families. The Bristol County Commission on the Status of Women aims to help solve the women's economic crisis by bringing these issues to the discussion table and being the voice for South Coast women.
Hello, and welcome to the Voice of South Coast Women. I'm Gail Forts, your host, and today we're going to be talking about women's economic independence. And I have three guests that I would love for them to introduce themselves, and we can talk about this issue. First, we have Val Bassett from the Women's Fund.
Hi, I'm Val Bassett from the Women's Fund of Southeastern Massachusetts, and supporting women's economic independence is at the heart of our mission. We raise funds to invest in solutions for women to be able to earn a living wage, and we identify a collaborative agenda for what are the best strategies to do that.
Okay, and Jean Fox from the Bristol County Commission on the Status of Women.
Thanks, Gail. Yes, Jean Fox, Bristol County Commission on the Status of Women. We've been around since 2009. Through legislation, we were established to represent all the cities and towns in Bristol County to advocate for women. And that advocacy takes many forms, one of which is a collaborative approach where we work with you at the YWCA, we work with Val at the Women's Fund, and we work with our constituencies and our legislators. Our goal is to effect real and lasting policy change for women in Bristol County.
And our last guest is Stormy Montero.
I am Stormy Montero. I am a Women's Policy and Advocacy Representative for the Women's Fund. I am an employee of the YWCA, Southeastern Massachusetts, and a LifeWork participant and a student at UMass Dartmouth. And I have been lucky enough to network and work with these sister agencies to improve my own economic status and the women around me.
So we hear on a daily basis how important women's economic independence is. So what exactly is economical independence for women?
I would say self-sufficiency, not needing any type of assistance, being able to pay for childcare outright, affording food, housing, a car payment, anything that just a level of income that a woman can be independent where she doesn't need any type of assistance, which is actually starting to decrease. There's more more families out there that need assistance as jobs aren't paying as well, and there's a lot of changes happening.
Yeah, I would add to what Stormy said. I mean, that's exactly right, the way we think about it. At the Women's Fund, and a lot of folks thinking about economic mobility and economic independence, is that it's really a livable wage. So what does a woman need to earn and to be able to support herself and her family? And there are folks who have done research to figure out what is that for different regions. So we know in the South Coast region, let's say New Bedford, Fall River, what that means if you have a family with one head of household, let's say a woman head of household, and two children, she would need to earn between $25 and $30 an hour, and roughly between $54,000 and $60,000 a year to be able to fully support that family's costs, housing, childcare, food, education, transportation, etc. So economic independence could be true for a two-family household. If you have two parents, what does that household need to earn collectively so that they can afford all the necessities of life? But we also talk about livable wage for an individual head of household.
Okay,
Right.
Jean, anything to add to that?
Yeah, a little bit. We also know, as Val said, what people need to earn to be able to be self-sufficient and economically independent. On top of that, we live in a region that unfortunately, statistically, is below most thresholds. We're below the average state per capita.
Hello, and welcome to the Voice of South Coast Women, sponsored by the Bristol County Commission on the Status of Women. I'm your host, Gail Forts from the YWCA Southeastern Massachusetts, and thank you for joining our show today, where our topic will be mental health. We have 4 amazing guests. They're going to speak about this issue to us in our community. So we'll start with Rachel, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Rachel Davis. I'm here from SouthCoast Hospitals Group. I work in community benefits, and part of my role is to work with providers in the community to assess community needs and develop and implement new programs to help fill those needs.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Beatrice?
Hello, my name is Bea Medeiros and I work for the Department of Mental Health. It is a state agency, and as such it offers a multitude of services and programs, anything from inpatient services and outpatient research, prevention, and treatment. My role at the Fall River DMH office is to assist individuals who have applied for DMH services and have been approved to identify what their needs are and to place them and match them with the correct service that best meets their needs.
Oh, thank you. Melissa?
Hi, my name is Melissa Costa. I am a clinical social worker. I actually do some outpatient work as well as do evaluations for crisis.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
Hi, my name is Michelle Keith. I'm a local attorney and I'm here on behalf of the Bristol County Commission for the Status of Women.
Okay, well, thank you all for being with us here today. So mental health, what exactly is the definition of that? What does that mean?
Mental health refers to a person's psychological or emotional health and well-being. So, and how they interact like with their environment and each other. So it's kind of how you feel.
Okay. Anyone else add to anything to that?
Yeah, I would go with the emotional and the behavioral, how outside influences and how we respond to them. There's a lot to do with our mental health.
So do we see a lot of mental health type of issues, challenges in our community and the people that you work with on a daily basis?
Well, sure. I mean, mental health is very common. I think people hear the term and they think of, you know, an extreme, maybe like a psychosis or a serious mental health disorder such as schizophrenia or bipolar. But mental health also speaks to, you know, feeling depressed, anxiety, and a lot of people have that. In fact, 1 in 5 American adults has a mental health issue at one point in their life. And it's not ongoing. It can change as your life changes.
It's fluid.
So who typically, is there a specific population, age group, gender that's affected by mental health?
I would say mental health affects anyone and everyone. It's an equal opportunity, you know, mode of just anyone can, you know, it can be men, it could be women, it could be Latinos, African Americans, Asian, anyone can be affected by mental health, whether it's you personally or someone that you care about or love for could be suffering from some kind of mental health.
Okay, Beatrice, did you have something to add
Well,
to
I
that?
was just going to say, just like we have medical illnesses, then the brain can also be affected by a mental illness, and so it ranges socioeconomic groups, just like Melissa said.
So are there typical types of, I don't know if typical is the right word, but typical mental health disorders that people are presenting to you in your organizations? Is it across the gamut, depending on the person's age? What types of things do you see on a daily basis?
So for the Department of Mental Health, we are, in terms of providing the services, to receive Department of Mental Health services, the person has to have a severe and persistent mental illness. So that's, the numbers for that obviously are not as common as the person who has, as Rachel was saying before, anxiety, depression, more of the things that most of us might be more familiar with or might affect us, even ourselves. So to have a severe and persistent mental illness, it means that the person has either severe mood disorder, I think some people have heard of bipolar, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, maybe major depression disorder with sometimes psychotic features. So those are illnesses that are much more disabling for the person. And that's the type of person that we see at the Department of Mental Health, that we provide services for.
Okay. What about at South Coast, Rachel?
Well, yeah, so we do see a lot of behavioral health in our emergency department, and the term behavioral health kind of covers the whole gambit of mental health, substance use. Before the new facility opened in Dartmouth, we had the Rogers unit at St. Luke's Hospital.
Domestic violence is a public health issue. It does not only affect women, it affects men, children, and families. And domestic violence doesn't discriminate. It touches everyone, all classes, all races, and all age groups. In 2014, the National Network to End Domestic Violence surveyed 51 local domestic violence programs in Massachusetts. And in one day, 1,795 victims sought refuge, received counseling, obtained legal advice, or connected with children's support groups. But these numbers aren't even totally accurate. The fact is that most domestic violence incidents are never reported. The victims are afraid to report the abuse, or sometimes they don't even realize the severity of the abusive relationship. The Bristol County Commission on the Status of Women recognizes these fears and understands that domestic violence is a complicated public health issue. The Commission aims to provide education, resources, and hope to victims of domestic violence. They are the voice of South Coast women.
Hello, and welcome to the Voice of South Coast Women. I'm your host, Gail Forts, and thank you for watching our show, which is sponsored by the Bristol County Commission on the Status of Women. We have some great guests today that will speak about the issue about domestic violence in our community. Here's our first guest.
Hi, Gail. My name is Rebecca Arruda. I'm the Education Coordinator for the Women's Center. The Women's Center is the domestic violence sexual assault agency serving the South Coast for the past 42 years. The Women's Center offers free and confidential services for victims around counseling, support groups, medical advocacy, legal advocacy, shelter, and prevention and education. Our medical advocacy program is if anyone goes to the hospital, specifically St. Luke's, we will respond to victims of domestic violence and help them while they're in the hospital to find a safe place.
Hi, I'm Diana Williams. I'm a commissioner on the Bristol County Commission for the Status of Women. Our mission is to provide a permanent and effective voice for women across Bristol County that'll foster and facilitate community and inclusiveness among women. We stand for basic freedoms, basic rights and equality, and we do that by meeting with women across Bristol County, meeting with different legislators at the State House, and also trying to educate women and families, particularly students in the area.
All right, thank you, Diana.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Bendixson. I currently serve as the Executive Assistant to Bristol County District Attorney Tom Quinn. The Bristol County District Attorney's Office is charged with prosecuting all crimes that happen in Bristol County, which includes 20 cities and towns. A lot of our work does focus on domestic violence. I would say the bulk of our cases in district court are related to incidents of domestic violence in the home. And I've also held several capacities at this office. I formerly worked as a victim witness advocate, working with crime victims. And personally, in my after hours, I also do a lot of survivor speaking. I was myself a victim when I was young in college, and that kind of led me down a path of doing a lot of advocacy and speaking on behalf of victims. I worked at the Women's Center alongside Rebecca for a little while, so I've done a lot of education and outreach work as well.
Thank you, Ashley.
Hi, I'm Julie Parker. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students and Director of the Center for Women, Gender, and Sexuality at UMass Dartmouth. The Center for Women, Gender, and Sexuality is actually the second oldest women's center in the country on a college campus. We were founded in 1970 as a problem pregnancy birth control referral center before Roe v. Wade was legalized in this country. I'm primarily responsible for all of our prevention and education outreach at UMass Dartmouth around dating violence, sexual violence, domestic violence. We have a $300,000 Violence Against Women grant from the Department of Justice that we've hired a victim advocate with that grant, along with using those monies to do mandatory first-year education around sexual violence. And my work, similar to Ashley's, comes out of a personal experience with domestic violence. When I was young, when I was 19, I was married to someone who was abusive, and that path also led me to become the feminist activist that I am today.
Hey, well, thank you, Julie. Well, we have a great panel today to talk about an issue that affects all of us in our community. So what is domestic violence?